Good evening, everyone. My name is Chad, and if you haven't seen any of my videos, I'm going to proceed this with saying that the MBTI types are discretionary. They're not absolute because there are more variables than just your temperament, which makes a relationship compatible. I figure that if we're going to start with compatibility, I would start with a dual type. That means the same. Considering from first person perspective, I am an ENTJ, so I'm going to talk about ENTJ relationships with each other. So the dual extroverted thinking allows ENTJs to speak on a level of logic with each other, so everything will be logical, including the conflict. ENTJs are very unlikely to be yelling and screaming at each other unless it deeply conflicts with that introverted feeling function, and in doing so, it becomes an emotional issue. But ENTJs are in logic mode 99% of the time, so they tend to bottle things up, and they can explode at times, but it takes a lot to switch them from the extroverted thinking, the TE, to the FI. If under a tremendous stress, the TE can and the FI can just go magnified, and that explosion is an outburst. It's like building so much momentum, and then it can explode. So that can happen, but it doesn't mean they. It doesn't mean that they are. It doesn't mean that they're not compatible. It doesn't mean that they're aggressive. It doesn't mean that they're going to turn violent. It doesn't mean that they're going to be out of control. That's a maturity issue. What it does mean is that they are going to be less likely to lose control, and when they do, it can be rather scary for a lot of other types. ENTJs are deeply passionate people. It's just those passions are buried. We feel that emotions tend to interfere with our logic, so we move our emotions down, but we have deep inner passions. So that is a misconception about ENTJs, as if we don't feel anything. We do. We just make decisions based on logic and not that emotion. So what that does for the ENTJ compatibility is that a ENTJ conflict can be easily resolved and peacefully resolved. Typically, it can be still heated with emotion, but it will be logical. Here's the problem, here's the solution, here's how we best approach that. The party may disagree. So there's a reason why the ENTJ personality type has the highest success rate in staying married, is mainly because they don't give up easily, and they're able to understand each other on a logical level, and they don't easily make emotional decisions. ENTJs make commitments and they stick to them. So naturally, our motivational behavior is we know what our commitment is and we're going to stick to it. We're not going to break that. I'm not saying that every ENTJ does that, because two ENTJs with two totally different value systems, one may think that commitments aren't important, even though their temperament says, hey, we make commitments because of this pattern. Their value system, they may had a father or something that always broke his word, and naturally they want to obey the word harder, or vice versa. Maybe they thought their father was too rigid and sticking with his commitments, and he never spent time with them, and then maybe they held some kind of unconscious emotion that made them want to not follow through with commitments. So it's important that you understand that there are multitudes of variables that determine relationship compatibility. Ultimately, MBTI is a surface level tip of the iceberg touch. So it doesn't mean that all ENTJ plus ENTJ combinations are going to work. What this purpose of this video is going to highlight the two personality types and how they work together to make it effective, and the benefits and some of the downsides. Another benefit is they do speak the same language of introverted intuition. They patternize things. I tend to have moments of epiphanies that I have no idea how I come across that information. It just, whoa, okay, there it is. Where did that come from? And I just figure things out. People say, hey, I'm going to throw you a surprise. And I don't think about it consciously. I was like, okay, well, that's nice. And then all of a sudden I know what it is. It just hits me what's exactly going to happen. Or somebody says, hey, I want to go out to eat, and I get some kind of feeling through their conversation, some kind of pattern, some kind of behavior that I pick up, perceive, and some kind of inflection, and I can figure out where this person wants to go eat. And it hits me like, oh, that's where we need to go. or it could be anything like that. And that's what that NI is. So it really does it leaves the relationship full of mutual understanding of each other. And it makes the relationship rather successful because of the double extroverted sensing too. So they both are extroverted sensors, ENTJ1 and ENTJ2. They both want to go do things. They both have goals. They both have objectives, and they're willing to clash with unforeseen circumstances. Both FIs, that's where some conflicts can come up with the explosion of anger, that kind of thing can come out of that FI. But ultimately, the deep inner passions, they will deeply care for each other at a very non-surface level. On the surface level, they may seem like a House of Cards couple, like Kevin Spacey and the other actress. I can't remember her name right now, but if you've seen House of Cards, it would seem like almost like a political relationship on the surface. But unlike that relationship, it would be bottled with very deep passions, and it would be less of a political relationship, although it may seem like that because they thrive in logic. But again, that's their public life. Their ENTJs are very private people, so it's not like they're going to want to, exploit their deep values and deep emotions to the world. They're going to just keep it between themselves. ENTJ conflicts can be seen in ENTJ conflicts can be seen in the misconception of their perceptions. If one ENTJ has a bad background, another ENTJ has a successful, it's the wrong word. If one ENTJ has a better upbringing and then the other ENTJ has a bad upbringing, that can create problems because the value difference, the perception difference. I mean, if one was abused and one wasn't as a child, you could see that maybe there's something that they would perceive differently in the world, and that perception would form a different NI function conclusion, and the epiphany could be off. And NI is not always right. That's the thing. It's cool when it works. People think you're like mystical and like, how do you know this stuff? But when it doesn't work, it just looks crazy. Like, okay, where did you get that conclusion? Of course, we can rationalize where we got the conclusion that once we think about it, but it takes us a bit to transfer what we get out of NI to TE to be able to logically order how we came across that conclusion or those epiphany moments. So getting the wrong perception is a problem with the ENTJs. Another problem is getting the control issue. One ENTJ is always going to want to lead. Both of them are going to want to lead. So there has to be a high level of respect among that relationship for one person to take the lead and the other to subject themselves to that lead. So there's got to be plenty of respect there and maturity there to be able to understand your role in the world, and that role has to be identified through your actions, and that role has to be understood through both parties as well. So there is not a misunderstanding of power and control. ENTJs are natural control freaks. We want to control our environment, so it makes it where one party does have to have the maturity to step down and relinquish control out of trust and respect. So those are some compatibility situations. I can always go in more detail should there be any questions, but ultimately I do say the ENTJ relationship is prone for higher levels of success. Again, there are many variables that constitute a relationship. Temperament is only one of them. Personality is another. Character is another. And personality, ultimately, they have to be a personality mesh. So with that being said, I'm going to close this video, and if there's any questions, feel free to comment.